Hello and welcome. You're with the Birth Whisperer, sharing global wisdom for confident childbirth. My name is Anna Wild, and today I'm so thrilled to be talking with Birgit Baader, one of my birthing heroines. The first time I became aware of Birgit was hearing her beautiful voice singing on a CD given to me to use during the births of my children. Not only is she a fabulous singer, she is also an educator, a mother of two, an author, and a filmmaker. But probably more than all of these things, she's really a facilitator of change, encouraging us to live more consciously, educate more consciously, and birth more consciously. When I was researching this interview, I realised that the foreword for her book had been written by Michel Odent. And for those of you who don't know Odent, he's an amazing obstetrician in France who is the pioneer of modern water birthing. When I saw that he'd written the foreword on Birgit's book, I was amazed and inspired and thought, wow, this woman really must have something valuable and important to say about birth. So welcome, Birgit. What made you want to write a book about birth?
I started to be interested in birth when I got pregnant. Being an investigative journalist, I got really interested and I wanted to research, and that was 23 years ago, and there wasn't much around at that time alternatively in the mainstream consciousness of the people. When I kind of researched how is this done in our society, I found it quite one-sided. I kind of couldn't really accept that the way that was described to me, which was like, you get an obstetrician, you find a hospital where he or she is operating, and that's where you go. And then second most important thing, you need to book a birth preparation course so that you learn how to breathe properly and do this properly and this properly, this properly. So I was really busy during my pregnancy, which kind of collided with me going to a birth preparation course because I went to sleep all the time. So I thought, okay, I just give that a miss. I don't go there anymore. And everybody was like, oh, that's a high risk, then you don't know how to do it properly. And I thought, that was when my natural rebellion kicked in, and I was like, man, women have been designed for this. And I was surrounded, I have to say that, by very negative birthing field. My mom had 5 horrible birth experiences when I was born as well. It was not nice and easy. In my family, birth is like in most families, something, you get over and done with, but not really described as a beautiful, empowering event in a woman's life, not at all. So I didn't grow up with positive birth stories, but still when I was pregnant, somehow my nature, my instincts, my intuition kicked in, and I was like, can't be that hard. But I wished I had, because to come back to your question, I wish I had a book or a resource describing all these options.
So it sounds like that really intuitive response to birth, the part of ourselves that knows how to birth just because we're a human being, that aspect was missing from the preparation that was offered to you when you were pregnant.
Yeah, I found the courses were quite focused on the doing it right thing, and that's very predominant in our society. There is kind of almost the notion that there's one way to do it right, one safe way, one good way, one normal way, one accepted way, and we promote these ways.
And so in relationship to birth, that would mean that maybe there's a way for each person to birth and only they can find that way?
Yes. If we kind of create that field of there's one right way to do it, I see a lot of women getting really tense with that, because then they're like, what if I don't breathe right? I get that from young women a lot. What if I do something wrong? So the doing it right implies I can do something wrong, which is, in the case of giving birth, not very supportive.
So what would you say to a young woman who comes to you and said, what if I do it wrong? What if I don't do the breathing right? What would you say to them?
That they really connect with themselves and do what feels right. Because I've seen women who are very much head-oriented, and they were like, and they breathed in a certain way, and they looked at their midwives and said, is it okay? And I thought, oh my God, what you really need to do is to feel it. It's almost like it comes naturally to you. But if you are too much in your mind, if you're thinking too much, you make a simple story more complicated. And it's really about allowing, trusting yourself. If we know that we are a person who are like, I want to do it right, I want to do it right. If you know that you're a person like that, it's good to deal with that, because work towards feeling, I don't know, it's all right. It's going to be all right.
So how can you practically come into that place, moving from perfectionist overachiever to really trusting yourself in birth? What can you do to come into that place of trust? You can be told it, but how can you really make that shift?
Great question. And I think as a society we need to work collectively on that. And there is, again, because we're all individuals, there's so many techniques out there at the moment, coming up more and more. Just to generalize it a bit, anything that uplifts you, that makes you feel good. And that can be singing, dancing, physical stuff, for yoga for some of us. For others it can be watching uplifting films, like the film of Ellen Eternity or others. Deborah Viscali has done a beautiful film. There's so many positive, uplifting stories around that help us visualize the positive aspects of birth. There are methods like hypnobirthing, there are methods like counseling or talking to a friend about what it is that worries you. It's a chance actually in a woman's life to really gain confidence, trust in yourself, and that's why I think it's such a beautiful, empowering opportunity in a woman's life. That take it.
I love what you're saying, and I think you mentioned two really important points. One is the increasing that feeling of confidence and the uplifting types of activities and watching movies and reading books and talking with people to make you develop that confidence. And the other aspect you mentioned was really acknowledging and working with the worries and fears,
Yes.
so they don't get in the way of the process. I really want to ask you about your book and writing this book about birth. You told me that another way to describe the book, or another way that it could have been titled, was Conscious Birth. Can you explain more about what is conscious birth?
Conscious to me means that we are aware of as many aspects as we can possibly get of a very complex matter. That can, and in order to make a conscious decision, you gather information. Find what feels good for you, what you think like, oh yeah, interesting. And then there might be some things you feel like, oh, no, you feel you're getting tense. Observe yourself. Where is it where I feel like, oh, because this might help you to find your way during pregnancy and birth as well. I really encourage every woman to observe herself. And on the other side, very important, what makes me feel like, that feels good. And then it's almost like collecting these data and go where it feels good, because this is your guidance. And tune into your child, another very important thing. Communicate with your child. I know it sounds to some people very much out there, and it did to me. I remember a Japanese friend of mine, she encouraged me to do that actually. She said, oh, you're a journalist, you communicate with your child, you write it down like in an interview, in a document. And I was like, oh, I found it really strange, and I didn't know how to. And
so how do you communicate with your unborn child? How do you do that? Can you give people some guidance?
I can say what I did and say what I experienced others doing. So yes, I found it, as I said, I was very skeptical in the beginning, and I also thought, how do I do that? So I sat down. She said, just whenever you have a quiet moment, sit down, place your hand on your belly, and just try to feel your baby, and just say what it is, and then pose a question. And I thought, okay, I might as well do that. I'm a curious spirit, so I just wanted to try it. I played around with it. And so I did, and I asked questions, and the first thing that I realized was that I've really got a different feel for something. I really felt something different in me. And then I asked questions, because I'm a playful person, so I just played around with it. I asked questions, and I got incredible answers, to the point that I really blindly wrote things down, because it was so fascinating to me. And then in hindsight, reading what I had written, I realized this goes way beyond my own perspective. It sometimes contradicts my own perspective. So I was pretty sure it wasn't coming from me directly, at least not from my conscious me.
What did you learn from your baby, and what can people learn from their babies?
My big wish was to give birth in the ocean. And I was about to book flights to Hawaii, where a friend of mine, she's a midwife there, and she does ocean birth, and I wanted to go there. I thought it's a great idea, dolphins will be around. It ticked all my boxes. I really wanted to do it. And in my conversations with Noah, more and more strongly, I got that I don't want to fly, I don't want to travel. And it took me a while actually to take it serious, because I wanted to do it and I didn't want to listen. I completely suppressed that bit of information until it got so strong that I thought, I asked him, so I said, so you don't want to go to Hawaii? Clear no, I don't want to go. And I was really pissed off. I was really angry about it. I didn't want to hear that, because I so wanted to go. So it was totally against my way of being. It was also against my experience with Julie, because she was born like in half an hour. It was intense, but we did it, and so we were ready to travel right after birth. And so I thought, like, oh, why is that so different with my second child? But it was different, and I chose to listen to Noah. And this was one really crucial bit, because I would have, if I wouldn't have communicated with him, I would have booked those flights and I would drag him around the planet.
You're really helping me to understand more this idea of becoming more conscious through birth, and that's really an information gathering process, whether it be with our baby and tuning in with our baby and their wishes, but also just exploring all of the resources that may be available to us, and researching and becoming curious. And I think one thing I'd like to know more about is, when we're looking for people to support us during the birth experience, whether that be our friends, our family, our partner, or whether it be a birth professional, a midwife or an obstetrician, what can we ask? What questions can we ask? What do we need to find out about, so that we're more conscious in our choice making?
I think it's important that we ask ourselves the questions and observe ourselves pretty closely. What makes us feel good? And where do you feel safe and supported? We sometimes tend to not speak up our truth, even if we get little hints. Like, let's say I go to an obstetrician and everybody has told me this is the one and he's really good and I've had 3 kids with him, and then there's this little voice who's kind of like, oh, I'd rather had somebody else. But our mind kicks then in very fast, especially with women, and says, no, but there's all this positive stuff. And then we kind of don't listen to that little voice who said, And I encourage everybody to, if you feel like that, and you don't even have to have a rational reason for it, who hinders you to just look around and open up? You say, okay, this might be one option. I can still go with him or her. Fine. But let's just say if there's something else. And then after having seen all the options, you might still choose to go back to the first one, but then you made the conscious choice. And that's what, for me, it's about a conscious birth. And it's crucial for birthing, for easy birth, and I have experienced pain-free birth, for that you release and surrender completely. And we can't do that if there's anything that makes us feel like this and our body tenses. It's crucial that we have an environment, a birthing place, where we feel safe and able to just let go. Yeah. And let the baby go.
You said you had a pain-free birth. That's pretty incredible for some women to hear. How do you think that happened?
It happened because I knew myself very well. I trusted myself fully. I had the confidence I can do that. I was so convinced. And enjoyed. And I had heard so many beautiful, beautiful birth stories. At that time I had talked to a lot of women who were very confident women and who knew their voice and would speak up. And I just knew I could do it, and I enjoyed it. I was completely in tune with Noah as well. And I wasn't afraid because I was alone. There was no midwife, no obstetrician, nobody around, apart from my daughter and my partner. So I just knew, I could be free. I could move. I could sing. I could make any noise I want.
It sounds like you're saying that being really relaxed, uninhibited, feeling really at peace in yourself to do whatever you want to do helped you to have a pain-free experience.
Definitely, yes.
And so maybe other people wanting to replicate that in some way can really ask themselves what's going to support them to feel uninhibited and free, relaxed.
Right. And even in a hospital setting, I have actually assisted women in a hospital setting because they said, but how can we do that? And I said, well, it's really important, therefore, that you reflect on who should be present. And not only me, obstetricians I know, like Michel Audin, he says, it's so crucial, the environment and the people who are present at birth influence how the woman gives birth and if there are complications or not. So a lot of the complications and a lot of pain during birth process is actually triggered by the space or the environment the mother is. A lot of hospitals nowadays, they're quite supportive if you step up and actually create it. You have to do it, and that's why I think you have to take on responsibility for that. And I encourage everybody to do it, to really say, this is what I want. And even if some hospital might think like, really? They haven't had that. They usually cater for it. They're quite okay, and so do it.
So it's really important to speak up and to trust yourself when something doesn't feel right, to ask for what you want.
Yes.
So that you can relax more.
Yes.
And your body can relax more.
And that's for a woman is a challenge in itself, because so many of us are used to not speak up and not say, oh yeah, well,
So what would you say to that nervous woman out there who feels anxious about saying what she really wants?
It's one chance in your lifetime, and no matter how many kids you give birth to, you welcome into the life, take every single child as a chance to empower yourself, to really, really find out who you truly are, and to actually give that into the world, because it's important. It's a huge opportunity to empower ourselves, and that will change the whole life on earth. We help our children with that as well, to become more empowered personalities, because it matters. The way we are born affects our whole life. see it as a chance, see it as a huge opportunity in your life. And you probably won't give birth to a lot of children. And even if you give birth to 20 kids, it's 20 times in your life. It's not very often. So make a conscious choice. Be aware that there's lots of options out there available. And like with anything else, it'll teach you a lesson for the rest of your life, because if you make a conscious birthing choice, how you welcome your child, you really have a gift that will empower and influence your whole life.
Thank you so much. Awesome.